Andre and Matt, good evening. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. Hope you are all okay. This is a public live stream, so this is on the Catch Fishing channel, and this is obviously open to everyone. So I'm trying to do these every month wherever I possibly can, just to kind of have a check-in with you. Well, that is a bit of paint, I think, or something. Just have a check-in with you and answer any of the fishing questions and stuff that you might have. It's obviously Friday evening. It's Black Friday. So I don't really expect too many people logging on tonight, just purely because it's a Friday evening. Lots of people will be out and about, I'm sure. So we'll have a bit of a check-in about what I've been up to, what's coming up and stuff when a few more people have logged on. So I just hope you are all okay. Can you hear me all right? If you can let me know, please. Maro's here. Good evening, Maro. If you can let me know if you can hear me, please. Anybody? I think you would have commented by now if you couldn't. I've got a nice red hot cup of coffee on the go. Lee's here. Andrew, thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Andre. Smashing. I haven't said that for years. I don't know why I've just said that. Oh, beautiful cup of coffee. How is everybody? I hope you are all okay. John's here. Hi, John. How you doing? Steve's here. Good evening, Steve. Mr. Norbury. I think are you in digs tonight, Steve? I think you are. Is that right? Or is it tomorrow you're in digs? I think you're in digs tonight. Richard's here. Good evening, Richard. Maggot Drowner, good evening. Mark Lee, hi, mate. In pub near Lincoln. Hope all okay. Hi, Mark. I know you're coming tomorrow, mate, so that should be good. Good. I think there's quite a few of you in digs. Thanks for letting me know. Sounds all right, Lee. And Ryan's here. Ryan Forrest, good evening. I can see how many people logged on. That's great. Well, it's great already. Thank you very much. If anyone's got any sort of fishing questions or anything you want to talk about, anything to do with the channel or anything like that, then please pop it in the chat, because, you know, it's nice to answer everyone's questions and just have a chat with you whenever I possibly can, but it's even better to do it when you're actually on live as well, because it's just kind of a bit of a thank you to you for logging on, and I like to answer you in real time, as it were. So I hope you are all okay. It's Friday. I've had one of those days where I haven't done much, but I've had a busy day, if that makes sense. We've actually had a product meeting today at Matrix, which has been a really nice opportunity to just kind of check in with all the anglers and the consultants at Matrix, check in with Craig Butterfield, Adam Firth, and brand manager Sean Little. So it's been a really good check-in day today. We're obviously always getting asked about new products, when they're coming out, what kind of products are coming out, and that sort of thing. And that's the day that I've had. So I left here at just after 8 o'clock this morning. It took me 2.5 hours to get down to Solihull, which is where we've had the meeting today. And it's taken me 3 hours just over to get back. So I've spent most of the day in the van, really. But it's been worth it. It's been great to see some of the products that are coming out next year and the year after. You know, that's how far in advance we are looking at things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to telling you more about those when I can. So yeah, there's loads more products coming out. So yeah, it's been that kind of a day for me today. The weather's gradually getting worse where I am in South Yorkshire. I know it's much worse right now north. I think, is it in the northeast? I think there's snow up there, and Scotland it's a little bit wild as well. And we're expecting that weather coming through here tomorrow, I think, if the forecast is right. I've also had a busy day as well, because, well, it's a busy 2 or 3 days, because the Match Fishing channel that I know lots of you of, thank you very much. It's one of our matches tomorrow. We have 2 matches every year, and I'll put 2 on. It is one of our matches tomorrow, and as you can imagine, with the weather forecast being how it is, we've had quite a few drop out, unfortunately. But if the weather forecast is right, then I can't blame you. You know, it does look pretty wild if the forecast is right. So we're going to be on the bank tomorrow. The match is going ahead. I know some of you that are logged on here tonight are fishing that match tomorrow, which is great. Hopefully we can all get there, and it will be a nice, safe match. But yeah, we are at Lindholme Lakes tomorrow. If you are a follower on Facebook, what I will be doing throughout the day is I won't actually be fishing tomorrow. I don't fish those matches anymore, but because I like the opportunity to go around and just speak to all the anglers and have a chat with them all while they're fishing. And it's a great way for me to meet them, because, you know, it's not often we meet face to face, because most of the stuff we do these days is online, isn't it? So I don't fish that much, but I will be going around, and I'm going to be doing some live feeds onto Facebook. So if you want to see how that match is going on tomorrow, from the anglers that I've spoke to today who aren't fishing that match, I don't think there are many anglers actually out there tomorrow, just purely because the forecast looks so bad. So if you are stuck at home tomorrow in the nice warm and dry, and you want to just have a bit of live match interaction, then just if you head on over to my Facebook page, which is Jamie Harrison Angling, I will be doing some live streams throughout the day from the match, just letting you know how it's going on, and you'll be able to see what the conditions are like. And no doubt you're going to see plenty of fish caught as well. We are on a lake tomorrow that's stuffed full of fish. There are lots of silvers there, and I know a lot of the anglers are going to be fishing for those silvers. So there will be, I'm sure there'll be lots of fish caught tomorrow. The conditions might hinder some of the performances, and it might determine what methods some people are fishing and some aren't. So yeah, so if that's something you that you know, if you're stuck at home tomorrow, you're bored out your brains, but you want a fishing fix, then it's the Jamie Harrison Angling Facebook page, and I'll be doing live streams throughout the day as I'm walking around the lake and stuff. So yeah, it should be nice. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the anglers that are going to be there. So let's just have a quick check in with the feed. Fuzz, is it? Good evening, Fuzz. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, mate. Rob Porter, hi, mate. James Atkins, Steve Norbury. I'm in Doncaster for the weekend. That's great, Steve. I know you were staying up, mate, for the match tomorrow, so that's great. Robert's here. How do you pronounce your name, Robert? Is it Crozier? 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 Lindsay? Good evening, Colin. Ryan Forrest. Hi, Jamie. I asked about you doing a film on additives and if they work. Do you think they will work in winter? My biggest problem with additives, Ryan, is that for the vast majority of anglers that are using additives, most people are working people. They're working class. They're working Monday to Friday, and you might be looking to get 1 day a week off to go fishing. Now, to find additives that work, it's going to take your whole lifetime, because you know there are that many variables, and certainly if you're fishing on your own as well, it's very much it's just a stab in the dark, as they say, you know, because you might find something that works 1 week and then the next week you'll go and it won't work, and you might think it's the additive, but in a week there could be so many different things that have changed. You know, there might not be fish in front of you. There's so many variables, and in my own opinion, the only way that you're going to get to know about how additives work is if you do it in like a formal way, almost like a mad scientist, and just document everything, you know, because if you're going to try and spot a pattern with something that's working, then you need to know what all those variables are. You need to have some sort of a measure of what you're pitching the additive against. So, for example, you need to make a note of the water temperature, the time of year, the type of peg you've got. Is there a wind on it? Is there a turnover of the tow and the water? There are so many factors involved, and the only people that I know that, that have kind of spotted patterns with additives are anglers that have been able to share some information with others. So, for example, when we say if we're fishing a team event, whether it's with England or Ringer Baits or whatever it is, or it could be just you're practicing for a national championship, when you sit down and you've got anglers all in a row, you know, in a line or a lineup, as we call it, that is the best way of trying to spot patterns and things, because you know you can have one angler on one bait, you can have one angler on the other, you can alternate them, and by doing that, that's the best way of spotting patterns. But in answer to your question, because I don't want to ramble about it, Ryan, is yes, I do think additives work, but I think as regards somebody like the majority of anglers out there, myself included at the moment, it's going to be very difficult to find something that works to a pattern, because you need to spend so much time on the bank experimenting in different conditions for different species as well, and it might be an additive that there are additives that you can use in different ways. So you might find the additive, for example, an additive might be something that you put on your bait as a glug. It could be better used just dissolved in water and mix your ground bait with it. It could be something you put on PVA. There's so many different ways of using it as well. So it's a bit of a minefield, but to be quite honest, from a bait manufacturer's point of view, it's a perfect product, you know, because you're never always going to catch with it. So you might go out and catch with it 3 times, but then the 4th, 5th, and 6th you don't catch. So what are you going to do? You suddenly lose confidence in it and go out and buy a different one. And it's a fantastic industry to be in if you can make it profitable. But in answer to your question, Ryan, yes, additives do work. I'm not saying they all work, but I think, you know, sometimes they work just because they're doing something different, not because I think the fish really love it. I think it's just something different, especially on pressured waters where, you know, I mean, we've been discussing 1 or 2 methods today that just some of the top anglers are just not catching on anymore. 2, 3, 4 winters ago, they were catching on certain methods. And now, going into this winter and last winter, they've hardly caught on them, you know. And a lot of it is because we're talking about commercial venues, and fish do wise up as they get older, so, you know. So it's a constant evolving thing. But in answer to your question, yes, they do work. But I think you're never going to get one that works in every scenario, because there are too many variables. You know, that's the nature of fishing. We're fishing against nature, so it will always be changing. But I mean, I'd be interested to hear your opinion, Ryan. What's everyone else think about additives during winter? Please let us know. Richard, got a 5-hour drive home from Scotland in the morning. Looking forward to that. I'm not surprised, mate. A 5-hour drive is not nice anyway, even in nice conditions. Never mind what tomorrow might throw at you. Ian Campbell, hi mate. Any sneaky peeks for new stuff for next year? I'd love to, Ian, but the last question that I didn't ask the brand manager when I left the meeting was, are all these top secret? All right. And I will find out if some are and some aren't. Some of them are very, very close to being rolled out. What I mean is they are in a finished state, and some of them are going to be coming out as early as spring. So there might be. I'll find out for you. I don't want to guess. I don't want to guess, because the problem, as you can imagine, because of COVID, because of everything and the manufacturing process and the lead times of getting product here, getting it designed, getting the samples back, testing the samples, sending them back to be changed, getting the final samples signed off, then getting into production and then getting them over here. The lead time, especially because of COVID, is taking so long that some of the products I've physically picked up today are not going to be out till 2023. All right, so that's why I've got to be a little bit careful. So I will find out for you, though, because that's the kind of thing that I'd love to share with you, just to let you have a sneaky peek of some of the things that are coming. Sav, good evening. Peter's here. Good evening, Peter. Lee Johnson. What stick can you catch at a distance of 100 plus on the lake? When you say stick, do you mean rod? I mean, I can only cast 100 meters. It's very rare I fish anywhere where you need to go past about 65 meters, because they're mainly bream venues that I fish. But even with the method feeder, the venues that I fish, I only probably go to one venue where you've got to cast long. And when I say long, it's rare that you cast past or catch past 70 meters. You know, I had a chat about this the other day with one of the best casting anglers in the country, who fishes the Boddington's matches through winter, which is where, you know, the big casting, where it's a massive advantage to have that there in winter. And I asked him about that particular venue, and he says, for whatever reason, even when you go past 70 meters, you don't catch any more fish. So it's very much down to the venue that you fish. But for those sorts of ranges, you know, nothing less than a 13-foot rod. All right, nothing less than or a 4-meter rod, you know, because you just need that to get out there. But it depends if you're using a method feeder or a cage feeder. But it's very, very rare. I just don't go to those venues. And to be fair, there's probably only one venue I can think of here in this country where that fits into the scene that I fish, where you would have to cast really long, and that's Boddington Reservoir. But that's about 100. I don't know what it is. It's about 120 miles away from where I live. Might be a little bit more. And in winter, you're only fishing there for probably 1 or 2 bites sometimes. And I don't really fancy spending my winter doing that. I'd rather be getting bites. Andrew Pearson, would you still dob bread on a snake lake in a strong wind? It's funny you should mention that, Andrew. That's one of the methods we've been talking about today. I mean, dobbing bread is not something that I've done for a few years now, because, you know, everything I've done really for the last 7, 8 years has really been revolving around feeder fishing. And dobbing bread's not really come into it, but obviously I know all about it, and I did it before I started focusing on feeder fishing. But that is one of the methods we've been talking about today. It's amazing how it doesn't work. Dobbing bread doesn't work on venues that it used to work on 3 years ago. And same with bobbing bread. Same again, nowhere near as effective as it was. I'm sure it will be on some venues, but on the whole, you know, if you're an angler that goes around different venues, certainly if you're going in qualifiers and things and you're going around lots of different venues, obviously you spot patterns of methods that work across a number of venues, which is great. But that is one of them, dobbing bread and bobbing bread. So, and in a wind, it's all down to presentation. I mean, obviously dobbing bread, you know, you're doing it with a pole. I suppose you can do it with a waggler, but even with a waggler, it's worse in a wind than what it would be with a pole. So it's all down to presentation. If the wind is too strong for you to present it properly with the pole, then, you know, it's not going to work. It's like fishing shallow. It's like fishing with a pellet waggler when the wind's strong, or trying to fish shallow with a pellet when the wind's strong. It affects all your presentation and feeding. Obviously, feeding's not coming into it when you're dobbing bread, but it's down to presentation. So it's one of them. If you can present it all right in the wind, it depends how strong the wind is. But yeah, it is one of them that you might want to stay away from, you know, and not waste your time with. You might be better off doing something else that you can actually present the bait properly with, if that makes sense. Lee, good evening, Lee. I fish a venue in Hertfordshire, which is a small lake, but very deep, up to 20 feet deep, finding it hard to catch while others around me do. What open-end feeders would you recommend? Well, in 20 feet of water, he's quite commonly to catch on a plastic feeder or a solid feeder, not a cage feeder. A common way of kicking off a swim like that for me in 20 feet of water, assuming you're after silverfish, is start on a cage and then change it to a solid feeder or a plastic feeder. You know, use the cage feeder to get something falling through the water. You know, don't squeeze your ground bait in too tight. Just do it so there's something coming off it. And even if you only have 2 or 3 first casts with it, just to get some bait falling through the water, try and draw some fish in. And then when the fish are there, or you think there's some fish there, switch to a solid feeder so that your bait's going to empty down on the deck, where, you know, it's going to make the fish much easier to catch once they're down there. And you might find there's a pattern there. You know, Lee, you might catch a couple of fish doing that and then it goes dead. Might be a case of putting a cage feeder back on again, get a couple of fish back in the peg, switch to a plastic feeder or a solid feeder that empties down on the deck and catch a couple more that way. Sometimes that happens. You know, that happens in a lot in deeper water than 20 feet, but it certainly happens in 20 feet. So that might be part of the something that might work for you, Lee. And overwetting your ground bait can work as well. You know, in deeper water, you know, whilst you might catch some fish down on the bottom, you know, we know generally that fish don't live down on the bottom. You know, they could be at half depth or somewhere off the bottom. And if that's the case, then, you know, having a little bit of bait coming out of the feeder, a cage feeder, or a little bit of wet cloud coming off the feeder, like a tracer coming down, trying to draw fish down, that could be the way. Because even in winter, we find that, you know, you might have fish at half depth in 20 feet of water. Quite a well. I've known that happen a hell of a lot. Skimmers, bream, but carp as well. But I'm assuming you're after silvers. So yeah, try that, Lee. That might work, mate. Or you might spot that the anglers around you are using cage feeders. You know, that might be the reason. Jonathan, hi, Jamie. Can you give an update in your heated clothing, please? So many to choose from, example, quality, etc. Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, I mean, to be absolutely honest with you, Jonathan, I only really tried 2 different sorts of heated clothing. One was a cheaper one. I don't even know the brand of it. I actually gave it away, actually, to one of my... In fact, no, there's one here. I've got 2, actually. Look at that, for coincidence. I got this one. I bought a cheaper one initially. I bought 2. I got one for Dad because I thought, obviously, if it was all right for me. And this was just off. It was actually off Amazon. And this is the one that hasn't even been used. This is a medium. If any of our members that are watching now that are going on the match tomorrow, if you want a medium, one of these, it's like a Gillet body warmer, never been worn. If anybody wants that, let me know and I'll bring it along tomorrow. You're more than welcome to have it. So yeah, so I did use this one first. I don't think there's even that's the this was off Amazon, this, and this was the first one that I got. That was before I switched over to Blazewear. I got another one sent me as well. How about this one? Look at this. How handy is it that I've just got these lying down, packed away down here? You see, that's like a Gillet body warmer type thing. He says, in a nice carpet green. There we go. Plenty of pockets on that one. That's all right for fly fishing. I'm just looking for a name for you because this one was all right, but there is a downside to it. There we go. I gather that is the brand name for it. It came with a little, I'm assuming that was some sort of like a first one that I got. Yeah. And basically that one with the brand that I've just shown you is, it was great. Nothing wrong with it. It worked fine. The downside with heated clothing, what you've got to remember is that when you're ordering the size, just try and think about where you're going to be wearing it. And that might sound a daft question, but when you order like a body warmer, for example, when you order a body warmer, you're going to order the size that fits you. Or say if you think you're a medium, a large, whatever, you order the body warmer. But you've got to think about just in advance, because I fell for this with the first one I ordered. which was that one, was that in winter you've got layers underneath and you've got layers on top. So think about where you want this body warmer to go. The reason why I'm saying that is because, say this one, for example, is a medium, all right, and that fitted me okay, right? So I've usually got a t-shirt underneath, and then I thought I'd have that on, and then I've got obviously my hoodie or my waterproof jacket and all that sort of stuff, which is great, nice and warm, brilliant. However, what I didn't really think about, because I didn't look into it, is that somewhere on your body you're going to have a power pack, which is what powers this, all right? Now, if that's buried underneath 3 layers, it causes a big problem, because you need to be able to get to that button nice and easy. Now, it depends where the button is. On some of them, on that one, for example, the first one, it was literally tucked away right down here. On this style, as you can see, it's there. So you could, that's it there. So you can literally just put your hand inside here and switch it on and off. And that's what the Blazeware one's like as well. All right, so just think about that when you're ordering the size. Think about, are you going to want to wear this over the top of everything else, just underneath your waterproof jacket, or is it going to go underneath? Just think about that. The downside of the first one, all right, the downside is because the power pack that you use with that is about that big, all right? It's quite big and bulky. So it lasts a long time because it's a bigger power pack, which came separate from it, by the way. It didn't come with it. You got to order the power pack separate. It's about that big, and it made it very, very bulky, a little bit uncomfortable, but it worked. It worked all right. It lasted ages. All right. However, when I switched over to the Blazeware, the battery, or the official battery that you can get at the same time, it doesn't come with it. Order it at the same time from Blazeware is about that big. It's about that big, and that is obviously very, very discreet. It just goes at the back here, out of the way, and the button, like I say, is here. So in answer to your question, the cheaper ones, I think this one and the other one was about 35, 40 quid off Amazon. I just showed you the brand name for it. And they work fine. There were nothing wrong with them, except that power pack was a bit big. I suppose I could have shopped around and got a smaller power pack, but I didn't. And that's because I was looking more at the Blazeware. I wanted to try that. So in answer to your question, the Blazeware was best by far, just for the heat it generated. Because of the small battery, it was much more comfortable. It worked every time, because I have read online that there are some where the buttons don't work every time. The buttons can fail, and I can imagine that getting very, very annoying. The Blazeware one worked every single time. The button, there wasn't any failure with it. The only downside to Blazeware, or the Blazeware that I have, is I only use the leggings. I do use them when it goes really cold, but it's only the leggings, because I'm okay here, because I've got enough jackets and stuff. I'm all right here. But if you have it on full, what I found was when it was on the lowest setting and when it was on the medium setting, I could hardly feel it. And that's because underneath there, you might have other thermals on, but I could hardly feel the lowest setting and the medium. So I had to have it on full in order to feel it. And as you'd expect, when it's on full, that's going to run the battery down quicker. And to have it on full constantly, I experimented with it once. I think the full, to have it on constantly for the full battery, I think that it wasn't more than an hour. It was, I'd say an hour tops, which is, I thought it was going to last about 2.5, 3 hours. So all I basically do is when I do wear it is, I just put it on in stints. You know, we usually find that, you know, if you're on a match or a fishing session, when you first get to your peg, you're all right anyway, because you're still warm from setting up and everything. And for the first 2 hours, you might be all right, you know, but all I do is I just put it on for 5 minutes at a time, just to take that chill off, then switch it off again and just do it then. Just only put it on when you need it. So I hope that answers that for you without rambling too much. So, yeah, I mean, the other ones that I got off Amazon, the first ones, they are, you know, they work great, but the power pack was too big. But I dare say obviously, you've got to check and make sure you get the right voltage power pack. I could have shopped around and got a small one, I'm sure, but the small ones don't last as long. So it's a balancing act. If you think you're going to have it on a lot, then you're going to need a bigger power pack. And if that's the case, just have a look on the garment where the power pack is stored, because on those first ones that I showed you, the cheaper ones, it's a pocket just here. And you can imagine if you've got a power pack that's that long, it can be a little bit uncomfortable. Whereas the Blazeware that I've got, the leggings, the actual power pack goes here, just behind you here, and you don't even know it's there. Don't even feel it. Plus, it's only that big as well, which is good. So I hope that answers that for you. Right, where are we? I just want to check the chat, because I just love to acknowledge everybody while I can. So many people logging on. That's great. Thanks. No problem, Ryan. Mark, dinner's here. See you all in the morning. Yeah, enjoy, Mark. You've probably gone now anyway. Ian Kelly's here. Good evening, Ian. Maro, Jamie, I saw that you are already using the new sliding slim tray. You don't know when it will be available in Europe. I don't, Maro, but I will find out for you. I'm going to send a message to Matrix not tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow night, actually, when I get home. But I'm going to send them a message because I want kind of some ballpark ideas about these new products, and I can ask that question as well for you because I'm not that up to speed. Well, I don't get involved in lead times and all that sort of thing, but I'll find out for you, Maro. Whereabouts? I can never remember where you are. Are you in Poland, Maro? I think. Just so it might be a different. Obviously, you put Europe, but you know there will be a different distribution depending on the country. I should imagine. Catch Fishing Channel mug. How about that? That's the last one, the last one ever. I've been asked about merchandise 2 or 3 times this week. I haven't got any for sale for the channel. You know, I was going to get some caps done and stuff, and I probably will do in the new year. Okay. And the other thing is I've been asked to mention is that for those people that are interested in the online courses, if you don't know what they are, basically it's online coaching. If you want to brush up on your fishing skills, whether you're beginner, advanced, your long range fishing or your winter commercial fishing, but you can't afford or you don't want to spend the money on a one-to-one session, or if you just live miles away where it's just not feasible for a session, then if you want to brush up on your skills in a no-nonsense kind of way, then the courses might be the answer for you. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because I got shouted at last time, believe it or not, because last time I had a sale on when I was selling the courses at a slightly cheaper rate, I got shouted at for not telling anybody on YouTube. So I'm telling you, okay, there is a Black Friday sale on, 20% off. And because I want to cover my own back, let me just do this for you. Let me just pop that into the stream for you. That's it. That's covered my back then, because I don't want to get shouted at. I don't mean to cause any problems for anybody, but there we go. That should be in the chat now. If anyone's interested in that, it's just through today. It's going to go into tomorrow slightly, I think, for a few hours, but there's 20% off all the courses. So if you're interested in those, we've had a fantastic response to the courses. I just want to say thank you to everybody who was enrolled on them. The reason for that, what you don't know, is that there have been over 500 people enroll on those courses, which is just incredible. And the feedback's been great because there's so many people I'll never get a chance to meet, and you want to fast track your learning and stuff. And, you know, I'm glad it's been of use to you, and thank you to everybody. And in answer to your question, yes, there are more coming. I've got some coming on float fishing, river fishing with Dean Barlow. And I'm also putting one together, which is slightly different. And I just need to mention this now. I'm not going to bang on about it, but another course that I'm going to be bringing out early next year is one that shares with you everything that I've learned in the 10 years that I've been on the match fishing scene again. And what that's really going to involve is when you want to step up from club level to open match level, you know, the things that I learned, the things that helped me, the things that wasted my money, the things that got me frustrated, I'm going to be sharing that with you. I'm going to be sharing with you how I got approached by my first sponsors, which was Bait Tech. And then obviously how I got approached by Matrix and the things that I did to increase the chance of that happening. I'm also showing you how I decided to focus on venues, how I chose venues that suited my style of fishing, how I coped with going in those matches and then stepping it up to festivals and then moving into fishing bigger matches like national championships and some of the big money finals. So that course is very much about being an open match angler. It's about someone who's taking it really seriously. And, you know, it's a different kind of course, that one, but that's going to be exactly the same format. You know, it's going to be a step-by-step guide, videos that you can download, and that'll be out. I'm putting that together this winter for you. So please let me know if that's something you're interested in, because there's so much value in that, which is, and it's first-hand value. It's not going to be based on opinion. It's based on what actually happened to me and the things that I did, because there are people out there that want to step up from club level or from pleasure fishing to go on to start fishing matches and things. And I learned so much. I wasted a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. I fell out with it 2 or 3 times, you know, and had I known all this stuff, you know, I could have been 4 or 5 years in front of where I am now. So that's something I want to share with you in one of the courses. So please let me know if that's something of interest to you. Right, let me get back to the feed. Here we go. Yeah, so I'll find out about that marrow for the tattle for you. Sav, Jamie, are you a user of the pellet cone? If yes, is it cold enough yet? The pellet cone, I haven't heard anybody fishing the pellet cone for years. I used to use it a few years ago, but again, that was because the venues that I was going to, it was suited and it was common on there. I honestly think the pellet cone is not a fashionable product. I think it's something that there are so many, not a product, sorry, a tactic. There are so many different tactics out there that a lot of them get forgotten about. I'll be absolutely honest with you, Sav, and that's one of them. I honestly think that the pellet cone has been replaced on the venues that I know about, which is mainly in the Midlands, like Barston Lakes and these open water lakes. I think the pellet cone has been replaced by the PVA bag. I think, because obviously it's a very similar way of presenting your bait. I know the pellet cone, you're using just pellets, generally micro pellets in a cone around your bait. But with the PVA bag, a lot of people are creating the exact same presentation. But with a PVA bag, you've got a little bit more flexibility. You could put bigger pellets in there, crushed boilies in there. You could even put maggots in there, hemp, whatever you want, in a PVA bag. So I honestly think I don't fish with it anymore, but it's very rare I hear anyone fishing with it now. Sav, I'm so honest with you. But I think that's because the venues that I know about, it's been replaced with the PVA bag. Andrew, would you still dob bread on a snake lake? Oh, right. The chat's moved. I do apologise. Let's catch up here. Tony Chandler. Good evening, Tony. Hope you're well, mate. Hope you're ready for tomorrow, mate. -4 chill factor tomorrow. Thinking about a bivvy. Seriously looking forward to it. Just hope there are a few bites to be had. It'd be nice to see everyone. Yeah, I agree, Tony. I'm glad you're making it. I know you're not very fit either, are you, at the moment? I know. But I'm glad you're getting time off, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone. Ian, no problem, Ian. Thanks, mate. Ryan Forrest. I've used a couple of additives in winter and they have worked, but on expander pellets in 2 swims, as in plain micros in one and flavored in another, and caught on the flavored better. That's great. You can keep that under your hat, that one, Ryan. Whatever flavoring it is, that's your little edge. Gasper, good evening, mate. Paul Whitfield, would you schedule for next summer, see if you are able to enter the Southeast Reservoir Champs? Most qualifiers and final are at Bow Beach. Paul, it's an event I've kept my eyes on. I think, is it in its 2nd year now? And it's something I have looked into, but I'll be absolutely honest with you, Paul. It's just Bow Beach is a 4-hour drive from where I live, and whenever those qualifiers and things have taken place, it's just clashed with other things. And when you look at, obviously, for me to get down there, it's a major thing. And it's something I've looked at, but I've never considered fishing it just purely because of the distance. But if the dates didn't clash, then, I do like Bow Beach. So, yeah, I will be looking at it, Paul. I'm going to be doing some different things next year anyway, through 2022. So, but that's certainly one of them. But, yeah, I know it's a great event, that, Paul. Andrew Pearson, would you dead maggots on the hook when fishing a maggot feeder? Yes, we do it all the time, Andrew, especially with barbless hooks. As you can imagine, with barbless hooks on a feeder, if you sat, especially in winter, if you're leaving it 15, 20 minutes with a live maggot on it, loads of times you reel in and the maggot's gone. They can riddle off barbless hooks. A little bit different with barbed hooks. If it's a venue where you can use barbed hooks, then more than happy using live maggots. So, yes, in answer to your question, use them a lot when we're fishing a maggot feeder. Ian Kelly, Jamie, are there any feeder matches that allow spectators, as I feel watching, we could learn a little bit more? Most matches allow spectators, Ian. It depends on the fishery. But by the very nature of feeder matches, as you've called them, they tend to be feeder venues. And feeder venues tend to be open water. So places like SOUTHFIELD Reservoir allow spectators, Barston Lakes, spectators. Even LARFORD Lakes, I know, walking down the Burbank is not always favourable in matches, but you sometimes walk around, around the perimeter. So, yeah, most matches, Ian, they allow spectators, but it is down to the actual fishery. But, I mean, most of the time, if they're on natural venues, then, generally a lot of them are on public rights of way anyway. So, yeah, a lot of them are. Daz Kennedy, good evening, mate. Since you've done the submerged videos, have you changed the way you fish? I only did. Well, I did the very first one. I did the very first submerged video, and there were 1 or 2 surprises in it, but that was really about how feeders were performing underwater. not about the rig. There were a couple of things to do with the rig, like how close your hook bait was landing to the feeder. We kind of knew that anyway, or we strongly suspected it. So that it confirmed it for us, which was good. But you know, the daft thing is, Daz, that's one of those things that I always felt I knew that's what was happening. I obviously didn't know it because we didn't know as a fact. But because of that, I used to do certain things in my fishing that I would strongly believe have won me many matches. And obviously, when that gets released out onto YouTube, it's been interesting, that one, Daz, you know, because there's been one or two things from the submerged video, and probably there always will be from every submerged video. I know I've just done the last one as well. People perceive what they see differently, you know. That's really interested me. I mean, right from that, I mean, the very first one we did is probably 3-4 years ago now. And even now, people still come up to me and ask me, just like what you've said. But it's funny how some people have kind of used that information to help them catch more fish. But some people have seen that information, seen what happens underwater, and it's just blown their mind, you know. And 3 years later, you know, they still haven't kind of got their head around it, or they've stopped doing lots of things that they used to do. So it's been interesting that obviously when you watch a video like that, it's a fact. You can see exactly what happens. But what I learned from that is that there's been so many different people interpret that differently, that lots of people reacted in different ways to it, you know, and that's really been interesting. And by that I mean, I'm trying to think of an example. One might be, you know, certainly when the hook bait was landing so close to the feeder, you know, there's really been 2 or 3 different things that people come up to me and talked about. And one of them is, I never fish with a hook length as long as that anymore, Jamie. I always have a really short hook length now. I learned that from that video, and that's great, you know. But then there are other people that said, yes, well, I saw that, and so now I only use fluorocarbon for hook lengths because I think because it's straighter and stiffer, it's pushing the hook bait away from the feeder and making that line tighter, or building less slack into it. And so people perceived it in different ways. But yeah, it's a very good series. It's nice to have some facts about what's actually happening underwater, isn't it? Robert, hi Jamie, you got my name right first time. That's good. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Hi Jamie, what are your thoughts on Free Spirit high S feeder rods? The thing with rods, was that Mark? Hi Mark. The thing with rods is there are people using Free Spirit rods, kind of initially the people that I know were using, or the anglers I associate with and speak to and interact with, were buying Free Spirit rods for casting. That was the first reason that they went out and bought them. You know, they were great casting rods, you know, the ones that they used, as they say. I've never owned one. I've never even cast in with one. So I can't really tell you my opinion on them. I can only tell you what I've heard. And that's, they're great casting rods. You know, maybe that's because some of the early rods were a little bit stiffer. I don't know. But the rods were certainly helping people achieve distances. But then I know people that got rid of them. They didn't like them for whatever reason, so they've changed to other brands and other stuff. But I know that Free Spirit now have brought out the, you know, the shorter rods, 10, 11 foots. And I know lots of people using them. But again, the things with rods, I know loads of people have gone out and bought them, but I know lots of people have gone out and sold them and gone back to what they were using or gone on to something else. But I know some lads that have changed all their gear and they've only got Free Spirit rods. So, you know, we used to talk about rods saying that's a brilliant action for this, blah, blah, blah. Whereas now, I've honestly just gone down the road in the avenue of thinking that with rods now, it's very much like it's like reels. It's like lots of other things. It's down to personal choice. It's personal preference. And it's just what people are comfortable with. But I've never cast one. I've never owned one, so I don't really know. But, you know, I can name just as many people using Free Spirit rods as what are using our rods, as what are using Daiwa rods, as what are now using Preston rods. So I really haven't spotted any sort of a pattern with them because, you know, one person says a rod's great, and then the next one says, no, I cast in once with it and sold it, you know. So it's very personal. But best thing I can say to you about that, Mark, is just get hold of one. Just find out where they've got one in stock and go and have a wiggle with it. Or if you know someone on the bank who's got one, do that before you go buying one. And that's the same with every rod. Same with every bit of tattle if you can get your hands on it. Certainly if you know you're going to spend quite a bit of money. Aaron Kenny, hi Jamie. On watching your last video on the Waggler, I hear you say you was at half depth. Would you always start at half depth? And when would you pin it to the bottom? Many thanks. I love fishing over depth with the Waggler. I love it. I mean, I really was brought up doing that when I was a kid, but it was really on flowing water. Used to be on the river with them. some of you will remember, the River Witham, when it was at the winter level, the River Witham in summer is kind of still, doesn't flow. The water level is a little bit higher, and you're catching eels, you catch bream, there's weeds everywhere. But in the winter, they actually drop it down to the winter level, so it's lower, so it's shallower, but it actually runs off. And that's where I was brought up to fish with a waggler. Fishing a waggler over depth, just running it down, fishing with maggots over depth, and that's where I learned where different wagglers with different tip thicknesses. Some, if it was too fine, or it was an insert waggler, if the bottom was a little bit not snaggy, but if there was something on the bottom, it'd drag the float under. So you need a more buoyant waggler or a thicker waggler, just so it to carry on pushing down the peg. Or you might be laid on too much. If you lay on too much, it slows the bait down too much, or even stops. You can put a shot on there to slow it down even more. That's where I learned about all that sort of stuff. So I love fishing over depth, because the venues that I was brought up to fish on, you could catch anything fishing over depth. If you had a nice shotting pattern that didn't go down too quick, then you have a chance of catching a fish on the way down. And then when it gets to the bottom, obviously that's where all your loose-fed maggots are ending up, or your loose-fed bait is ending up if it's not getting eaten on the way down. And that's when you stand the chance of catching a skimmer or a bream. So I used to love fishing like that, because you're fishing through the whole water. So normally, under normal conditions, I'd love to start at full depth, but on that particular session, I mean, it was 15 minutes waggler fishing, I think it was, wasn't it? I'd seen fish topping throughout the day. I hadn't fished, but there were fish topping, and that's a deep lake anyway. Well, I said deep, it's about 11 foot. So it's quite deep anyway, certainly if you loose feeding maggots, because, you loose feed maggots, they can take a long time to get to the bottom in 11 feet of water. And when there's lots of roach there, I just never felt that there were going to be any fish down there when I started loose feeding maggots. So that's why I started at half depth. But I think I ended up going shallower, didn't I? Did I go shallower? So yes, I love to start at half depth if I don't know what to expect, because then you can always shallow up or change accordingly. If that makes sense. I hope it does, Aaron. Jonathan, I am watching now. Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Do you keep your knees warm? 5 hours is a long time. Circulation on lower half of body. Yeah, my knees are all right. The only bit where I ever get cold when I'm fishing is on my thighs. That's it. And obviously that's where the blades, where leggings come in when I need them. Maro, do you use open window baskets on fast flowing rivers? No, I've never used a window feeder on flowing water. I mean, you can do if it's not flowing too hard. Obviously, the nature and the design of a window feeder is not designed in a way that's going to hold bottom on a fast flowing river. It's just not going to happen, is it? It's against that. But the nearest I have caught on is do you remember the dome feeder, the Matrix dome feeder? They are discontinued now. There are still some in shops, but I actually fished with. I fished on the River Trent with dome feeders, and the first time I did it, I won the match with about, I think I had 120 pound of bream with a dome feeder. But the style of the dome feeder, yeah, it's dome shaped, but it's still a side weighted feeder, which meant it was ideal for pinning to the bottom. There wasn't much flow on that day anyway. But the reason why I fished with that feeder is because I drew an area or a section where there were known to be shoals of bream, and I wanted to kind of dominate that area. I wanted to, if there were any bream in that area, I wanted the fish to come to me. So I just put loads of particles through, and that's what I could do with a dome feeder. I just filled it up with, I can't remember what it was, dead maggots and I don't know if it was casters or certainly chopped worm, and just capped it off with ground bait and fished with that, and just kept putting bait in until the bream turned up. And when they did, I'd got enough bait there and I was putting enough bait through, they never left me. And it was just ridiculous compared. I think I had 120 pound, and I think the next weight to me, or second in match, was 16 pound, and that was the next peg. So sometimes when you think the fish are there, sometimes you've got to feed to keep them there, and they never left me. So yeah, in answer to your question, no, I've never used a window on a river, but I have used a dome feeder, which is the same principle about introducing particles, if that makes sense. UK sea fishing with Big Dan. Good evening, Big Dan. Thanks for joining us. Scott Williams, good evening, Jamie. Tea or coffee in your flask? It's gone cold now, mate. It's gone cold. So as of, that's a very current question. As of last week, I'm now on OXO. OXO's in the flask now with a little dash of pepper, just a little bit of spice, and that's it. Keeps you red hot through winter, but there we go. You might be a Bovril fan, I don't know. So yeah, in summer, I'll go through the coffee route and soft drink, obviously. But now it's OXO, now it's gone cold. George, George, good evening, George. Bill's here. Bill and Liz watching. Good evening. Hope you're enjoying your evening both. Andy H. Hi, Jamie. I've just bought a sonar ball for checking out big reservoirs. What's your experience with them? Cheers, Andy. Hi, Andy. Before they really got popular, certainly within match fishing, I got one as well. It was the Deeper. I went out and got one, and that's purely because I wanted to do a series of videos where I was going on reservoirs, same as you, and I wanted to get a better idea. I wanted some facts about what was happening underwater. It wasn't just about locating fish. It was more about looking at the contours of some of the big reservoirs that I know, and that was because I was going to do a series of videos, and I used that for several weeks. There is one video on my channel about it, on this channel. I think it's called Quarry Bream Quest, I think it's called. I think that's what it's called. It's about 3 years old now, and I actually went out with the Deeper before that. I shot that. Well, it's actually part of the film. I actually go there to have a look at the depths and everything to see if there are any fish there. That's right at the beginning of the film. I think it's called Quarry Bream Quest. If you haven't seen it already on this channel, it is there to watch. So yeah, great bit of kit. Open my eyes. I don't use one anymore. I know one or two top anglers do carry one now if they're going to go on recce a venue to get an idea for it. You know, they're not allowed in match fishing. Not here in the UK anyway. You can't use a Deeper before the match or anything like that. But if you're going to go and try and work a venue out a few days before, or you're practicing, then obviously you can use it then. And it can just jumpstart everything. It can give you an idea about, obviously it can locate fish, but it can give you ideas about any sort of drop-offs, maximum depths, anything like that. But it was a great bit of kit. I didn't have any problems with it. The only downside I had with it, and I don't know if that's still the case. Maybe it was just the type of Deeper that I was using. I don't know. And that is that it had a minimum depth that it would actually work in. So I took it to one or two shallower venues that were in the sort of 4 or 5 feet depth range, and it was too shallow to get a reading. And that was the only disappointing thing about it. You know, you needed a little bit of depth to get some sort of a reading. So yeah, certainly did the trick for me. Martin, good evening, mate. Sorry I can't make tomorrow. Good luck to everyone fishing. Hope you all get a few bites. That's all right, Martin. I completely understand, mate. I know you've let me know anyway. For Ultra 4.2, 150 gram, will the Ultra 4000 coil carry 140 gram feeders? 4,000, does that mean the reel? I think you mean the reel. No, I mean, when you're using a 4.2 meter rod, I won't use anything less than a 5,000 reel. I wouldn't even bother using a 4,000. It's just mismatched, you know, in my opinion. And if you're talking about casting at range, then don't forget, what you're going to remember is that we've talked about it before. For those, I mean, Dean obviously covers it in our long range course, but it's about all those little percentages. All right, when you're casting at range like that, your reel can make a massive difference to the range that you can cast. You know, just the spool, the width of the spool, how shallow the spool is, all that will aid gaining distance. But what you're going to remember is if you're going to be casting a feeder 100 meters, imagine reeling that back with a 3,000 reel. It's going to take you a lot longer than it is on a 5,000 reel. And they are workhorses. You know, if you're going to be bringing a feeder back from 100 meters plus all day long, week after week, or over several sessions, your reel's going to get some stick. So you need a minimum of a 5,000 reel to do that. It's got to be a workhorse, you know, because to cast 100 meters, your feeder's got to be heavier as well. All right, so you're probably going to cast at least a 60 gram feeder, probably going to be more, might be 70, depending on your feeder and the conditions. All that is going to be wearing your reel. So you need a good reel, minimum of a 5,000. Usually, I mean, 100 meters is extreme. So you're probably going to be better with some sort of a specific distance reel, like a pit reel or something like that. So yeah, I wouldn't try it with a 4,000. Gavster, looking forward to it, Jamie. Thank you. No problem, mate. Ryan, Jamie, what makes you sad about fishing? Oh, as I get older, there are more things that make me sad about fishing. The biggest one for this year for me, Ryan, that's made me sad is how many people don't actually enjoy just going fishing. That makes me sad. You know, I'm mixing circles, and I'm lots of friends with people on Facebook and stuff, and they are match anglers. You know, I get that. They love the buzz of match fishing. But I was being amazed this year, and it's COVID what's made me realise it, that, you know, there are so many people that just don't enjoy just going fishing. And I don't get that. I just don't get it. You know, I love the buzz of a match. I mean, nobody thrives on match fishing more than me. You know, I can spend weeks preparing for a match. You know, I'm sleepless the night before. There are events that I go to 3 and 4 days early sometimes just to have a practice and get familiar with it, you know. But to do all that and not just enjoy going fishing, you know, when you haven't got a match on, just go fishing for a few hours. You know, you've worked all week. What's better than just having a few hours on the bank? That makes me sad. That makes me sad. But there we go. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm amazed. And some of the top anglers in the country are like that. They can only match fish. And it was COVID what made me realise that, because obviously there was a period where we couldn't fish any matches and people just didn't go fishing. They could still go fishing, but because there weren't any matches, they just didn't go. And I couldn't relate to that any longer. And it just really surprised me, that, Ryan. Really surprised me, because, you know, you think, well, the thing that got me, Ryan, about it, you got me on about it now, aren't you? The thing that got me about it is that there were certain anglers that wouldn't go pleasure fishing, as they call it, or they wouldn't go fishing because they only want to fish a match. They are matchmen. That's what they are. They fish for money. They make 12 rigs up the night before and 50 uplands because they are matchmen. I'll tell you what, some of the best matchmen in the country, in the world, will have been out pleasure fishing because they will have been out there working on their game. Working on the game because they are such good match anglers. And that's the bit I didn't get. I didn't get that. If they were so, you know, so professional and passionate about fishing matches and wanting to win, then I'd want to spend every minute I possibly can on the bank practicing and upping my game. That's the bit that made me sad. I'll not go on about that anymore, Ryan. I'm gonna have a drink of coffee after that. It's made my mouth dry. Dean's here. Good evening, Dean. Dean Bailey. So you're all right, mate? Thanks for watching all the videos, mate. I know you watch everybody's, but thank you for watching mine. Gabster, full English or a McDonald's on the run to a match? Oh, mate. If I've got the choice, it will always be a full English. But what I have noticed is that, you know, certainly over the last 2 months, what month are we in? It's been a blur. Certainly the last 2 months, I have been pretty much a full-time match angler. And I don't want to be a full-time match angler. I don't want to spend all week preparing for a match. That's not me. I like to be doing other stuff, you know. And certainly in that period, I've spent more time on the bank fishing, and I can see how it's so easy to get into a routine of having a full English every time you go fishing, and it's just really not healthy, is it? It's not good. And I can see how, you know, there are anglers that go full time or stop fishing more, and they end up putting weight on. It's easy, you know, because it just becomes habit. So in answer to your question, I love a full English, but if I go away, like last week, I was at Lindholm Lakes for 4 days, 5 days, whatever it was. I only had 2. The other days, I'd like to have a bacon sandwich or something. I mixed it up a little bit because you can't do it all the time. So McDonald's will always come second, but I do love a McDonald's. But that's always the fallback. You know, if there's a cafe and the cafe's not open, or they're not having breakfast, or they're drawing in a car park or something, then it will be McDonald's. So there we go. Mark, I use Atomic Cloud on my maggots and in a feeder. It's brilliant. It is. I've seen that, Mark. Yeah, I haven't used that for ages. Richard Webb, working near Tamar Lakes next week, not fished there before. Do you know if you can just turn up and have a walk around the lake for a look, or is it private anglers club? It's a public, it's a park. It's in a park, right, Richard, so you can walk all the way around, mate. When we were there, people non-stop. Some people walk around it every single day. They walk all the way around. I think there is a measure on it. It's is it 3 mile or 2 mile all the way around? It's like a walkway all the way around. There's a cafe there where you can get something to eat. And yes, it's like a visitor center, not a visit. Yeah, it's like a visitor center almost. But yeah, you can walk all the way around. There we go, Richard. Yeah. Stuart Neville May. Good evening, Jamie. Bit late. We'll catch up later, mate. No problem, Stuart. Hope you're okay, mate. Freddie's here. Good evening, Freddie. Chris Gardner. Any idea when the 4-wheel transporter is likely to be in stock anywhere? They keep coming into stock, Chris, but the problem is they obviously go straight back out again. My best bit of advice about the 4-wheel transporter, this is, no, I'm assuming it's the Matrix one you're talking about. The best bit of advice I can give you on that one, Chris, is I was in a tattle shop last week and I had this discussion with the tattle shop owner. Now, this particular tattle shop owner, and there probably are other tattle shops, so if you've got a local tattle shop, give them a ring first, please. Obviously, you know, it's good to support your local tattle shops. But this particular one, I'll tell you who it is in case you're struggling. It's Billy Clark's in Sheffield. But I'm sure there are loads of tattle shops that are doing the same. He has literally got a waiting list of names for people as they come in. So as a 4-wheel transporter comes in, if you're first on the, well, they don't come in ones, but they come in and he will give you a call as soon as they arrive. And if you don't want it, he doesn't mind because he knows the next one down will have it. He'll always be able to sell it. So that's Billy Clark's in Sheffield. But like I said, there are probably other tattle shops doing that. So that's the first thing I'd do if I was you, if you are really after one, Chris. All right, mate. Stephen, good evening, Stephen. I'll be all right, mate. Evening, Jamie. Oh, the feed keeps moving. I think I need someone to come and monitor this feed for me. Let me just get rid of that. That's asking me to save the stream. There we go. I just spotted Stephen's here somewhere. Where are you, Stephen? I'm trying to keep up with this feed. It keeps moving on me. Stephen Armstrong, good evening, mate. Was busy prepping for tomorrow. Oh, glad to hear it. P, evening from Staffordshire. Good evening. Freddie, do you think the MTX3 would be suitable for me at 16 meters? I'm 13 years old. The thing with the MTX3 is it's the same as an MTX4, except when you go past 13 meters. So if you're going to be fishing 14 and a half, 16 meters, that is where the MTX4 really kicks in. That's the difference. So if you're going to be fishing that sort of a length, the MTX4 is the better pole. Obviously, that's why it's more expensive. I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you, Freddie. You know, I know junior anglers. When I was 13, I could fish a 60-meter pole, and I'm not exactly a big lad, am I? But that's because most of it is down to technique. You might, I don't know how you hold your pole, but yes, you'll be able to fish with it at 16 meters. But you might have to change your technique. I don't know how you hold your pole, and you might want to use a bump bar. A bump bar might make it easier. You know, a lot of people are kind of embarrassed to use a bump bar, but some of the biggest names in angling use them. You know, I see them in World Championships because it helps you hold the bait still. You can put the pole between your legs, and it just takes all that strain off. Mark Pollard uses one all the time in this country. You know, it just makes, when you're fishing that longer lengths, makes it easier. So you might need to use a bump bar to make it easier, Freddie. But yeah, I mean, it should be all right, mate. But like I say, it's down to your technique. Sam Campbell, evening, everyone. Good evening. Winter commercials. If using method and micros, what's your go-to hook bait? Do you ever use dead reds with that, or just stick to wafters and pellets? I always kick off with a wafter just because I'm really confident in it, or something like a dumbbell or a bandom. I mean, in winter, it depends on the venue and the fish that you're after, Sam. But you know, I love to kick off with a wafter just because I'm so confident in it. It's nice and bright. It stands out, especially in clear water, which is or clearer water, which is what you can get in winter. And it's really robust. You know, if there are any small fish there, if they're getting attentions from small fish, then a wafter is just really, really durable. And a lot of the time, you can present it either on a band if you want, or a bayonet, and it leaves your hook exposed, and everything's just a nice, neat hook up. But that tends to be my start, you know. And then after that, I will go down the pellet route. A banded pellet can be great. But yes, I use reds a lot. But the reds, I mean, I tend to catch more with reds if you're targeting, if there's any bream there, or skimmers, and you want them as well. But F1s, you know, the dead reds tend to be better for F1s generally. But it's down to the venue. But yeah, I do. And I like to hook them properly on the hook. I don't like to put them in a band. I know that's a personal thing, but and even among some of the top anglers, you know, some of them prefer a band and some like to just hook the maggots normally on a hook. So again, that's a personal preference thing. Martin, evening, Jamie. If you were fishing gunwade on Ferry Meadows tomorrow, cold and clear, what would your plan of attack for a few early winter slabs? Wow. If that's what you're doing, Martin, you're a brave man. If it was me, I'd fish one line. Fish one line, a decent range. Depending on the wind, I mean, you're going pleasure fishing. Just think about the wind direction tomorrow. It will have an impact on it. If it is going to be, I think Tony Chandler said it was going to be -4 wind chill tomorrow. The fish might be out the wind. There might be, you know, on the back of the wind. So if there's any areas that's not getting hit by the wind, that might be a favoured area, a sheltered area, because that, you know, the temperature might be, you know, a couple of degrees warmer and just more comfortable for fish there. But I'd fish down one line. I wouldn't feed much. What I would do is I'd put some feed in at the start. I'd put 3 or 4 feeder full in at the start, not a lot, and just fish that out. Just fish it out and fish for one. Fish one line. If you fish one line, if you are going to get a visit, then you're going to be on that line when you get a visit. You know, that's the thing in winter. If you start fishing 2 lines, you might get a visit on one of your lines while you're fishing the other line and you miss your opportunity. Ferry can be rock hard in the middle of summer. I'd go fishing for one bite. Tomorrow I'll probably fish maggots because they're less selective, 3 or 4 maggots, and do that. And if you get one, then great. See if you can get another one. And if you don't, put 4 more in and then fish that out, just like you do when you're pole fishing, and fish for visits. But yeah, it might be hard on there, but you never know. Pleasure fishing, you could land on some, mate. What's your hook choice for barbless feeder fishing on rivers? Oh, I never do it. I never fish barbless hooks on rivers. I don't do it. You know, all the rivers that we fish here and abroad allow barbed hooks. So we always use barbed hooks, you know, as simple as that. But they'll be the same patterns. It depends what you're after, whether you're after bream or whether you're after small silverfish, after roach or anything like that. A nice medium gauge hook, a barbless one, is the MXC1. That's just, it's a middle of the road kind of a hook. It's one that's, it's not too fine, it's not too strong. And assuming you match the size of it to your hook bait right, you should be able to land anything. So the MXC1 is just a great all-rounder. Phil Ackley, good evening, Phil. Hi, Jamie. Always interested in your opinions and methods and guidance. Keep you posted on any Swedish potential festivals. Thank you. Appreciate that, Phil. Thank you. Ryan, well, Jamie, or never expected that answer. I enjoy my fishing, whether it be a match or pleasure. If I take a friend who has started fishing, I get a buzz helping. I'm not the best angler. If there was more people like that, Ryan, it'd be great. There'd be more people on the bank and there'd be more people enjoying it, you know. At the end of the day, everybody's different. They've been brought up different ways, but people's values are different as well, you know, and that's something that, you know, I've gradually learned about as I got older. Some people would go to the bank. So I know some people that go fishing without bait and hope to find some worms on the bank when they get there. But I know some anglers that, you know, the first sign of a stiff wind blowing or a bit of rain, that they'll just jack it in and just not even bother going, you know. And I know many anglers that that would much rather spend the day at home prepping instead of actually getting the tattle in the car and going and fishing. It's, everybody's different, you know, everybody's different. Martin, some people struggle with a lasso. Have you ever tried tying a big-ish loop, pulling through a drilled pellet, then loop over the pellet and then pull tight? It's a slight easier. Yes, yeah, I have seen that, Martin. I've never done it though. I did mess about when I first got back into fishing, 2010. I was doing quite a bit of commercial fishing, pole fishing and stuff, and the lasso for me just seemed right. You know, it's virtually it's invisible, isn't it? You know, there's nothing around, there's no band around the pellet or anything like that. But what I found with the lasso was that I gradually learned that a lot of the anglers, when I first started fishing like that, a lot of the anglers that were beating me, who knew the venue, who knew about commercial fishing, were using bands. And that's when I quickly realized that it didn't really make a lot of difference. But the lasso was a little bit fiddly. And what I felt I was gaining by having this invisible loop around the pellet, I was kind of losing because it was so fiddly and taking me longer to put the bait on. And so it was a fine balancing act. So I quickly ditched it, but that would work. Yeah. And I've thought of doing it that way. Steve, when's the new Horizon X pole holdall in shops? I don't know. I'll find out. It's on my list. I'll find out about the other stuff as well for that. I don't know what the lead times are on it. It's not something we've discussed today, but I'll find out for you, Steve. Chris Harvey, Jamie, when I need to finesse things in winter, I've gone to using a gape. I've gone to using a cage for neat ground bait at start, then switch to a lighter bomb and start catching fish I didn't think they were there. Do you try this? Yes. The thing what you got to remember is that the thing with feeder fishing is a lot of people think that because you've got a feeder on that you've got to fill it up every time you cast out. You know, and that's fine. That works obviously a lot of the time, but you haven't got to do that. You haven't got to fill a feeder up every time you've cast out. And a lot of things we're doing in fishing, certainly in feeder fishing, we're trying to replicate what works so well in pole fishing. Now, how many times do you fish in pole fishing, depending on the venues you go to and the country that you're in? How many times are you feeding a ball of ground bait every single cast when you're pole fishing? You know, that there are scenarios where that works, and I know in Ireland and lots of these other natural venues you might be doing that all the time. But on the vast majority of the venues, certainly here in England or in the UK, certainly on commercials, you just won't feed a ball of ground bait every single drop in, would you? You just, you know, they become a state where you think, I better stop doing that. Well, that's exactly what people are doing with the ground bait feeder. You know, they're filling it up with ground bait every single cast, and that's so different from what works in pole fishing. So what you've just said there makes perfect sense. 2 or 3 casts with a feeder and then switch it to a little bomb, because then it's nice and discreet. It's going over that bit of feed that you've put in, and you just fish it out. And if it goes dead or you catch a few and then it goes dead or whatever, put a cage back on again, try and get some fish there. Yeah, works brilliantly. The only reason why you probably haven't seen me doing it more, Chris, is because a lot of the feeder only matches that are competing, well, all of them, don't allow you to put a bomb on, and that's where the empty feeder comes in. Same sort of thing, as long as you've got a nice little discreet feeder. Enjoy your fishing. Good evening, mate. I hope you are all right. Yes, Dad's very well. Thanks, Keith. Evening, Jamie. Evening, lads. When would you choose Feedlink over feeder Bead? I always struggle with it. I'm not going to be very well. No, I'm going to be honest about it. About everything else, I don't really use feeder links now. After probably 4 years now of experimenting with feeder links, I just cannot see the benefit of them. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. What I'm saying is, when I've used feeder links in comparison to just a snap link swivel running up and down the line, I'm seeing any difference in my fishing. I've tried it so many times. I've experimented so many times. There have been times when I've missed bites with both, and it's been something else that's made me stop missing bites, like the hook size, the hook length, or the hook bait, whatever, feeding, whatever. But it's not been because of the link. And I've had far better results on all the venues I've fished, whether it be rivers, lakes, commercials, reservoirs, with just a snap link swivel, that I just don't use feeder links now. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask about that, because it's just one of those things that I haven't seen a benefit of using a feeder link, so I don't use them in my fishing at all now. Yeah, that feels like a rubbish answer, but it's a very, very honest one, and it's probably one that a lot of people would like to hear, because it's making things even simpler. So yeah, I'm sorry if that's a rubbish answer. John Tipton, hi Jamie. Hoping to fish my first match next spring in sunny Fermanagh. Any advice? Thanks. Wow, that's fantastic, that, John. You're obviously over in, well, I think you're over in Ireland. You haven't said that. You might be travelling over there to fish the match. Any advice? Just be confident. Be confident. Anybody what does well in Ireland consistently, obviously there are times when a more negative approach will work. It completely depends on the venue. And you have mentioned it's spring, so obviously the water can still be cold in spring, but just be confident. You know, all my experiences on all the venues I've fished in Ireland, the good results, the bad results, what I've learned, what I've made work, has been through being confident. Just be confident. You know, a lot of the venues in Ireland, they're hungry fish. They're fish that are just looking for food. You know, and if you do get a visit by a shoaler fish, you want to catch them, but you want to keep them as well. You want to keep them there. So, you know, whilst it might be a slow start, one of the best bits of advice I had off, and I'll tell you exactly who it was, a very well-known angler, an angler that does very, very well in Ireland. He does very well wherever he goes. He's a brilliant all-rounder, and that's Andy Leathers. The first festival I ever fished in Ireland, which was about, I don't know, 2012 or whatever it was, I was fortunate enough to stay with him and Will Freeman. And that was one of the first things he said to me. First thing on the first day, he says, Jay, he says, you might go the first 2 hours without a bite. He says, but just keep feeding. Just keep fishing and fishing and fishing. He says, because A, by being active, you're going to help draw fish into your peg. If they're not there, they will come through the peg. And if they're not going to rock up, well, they're not going to rock up anyway, whether you feed negative or not. But the thing you've got to remember is that a lot of the Irish competition, well, all the Irish competitions are done on cumulative weight. And that basically means that, you know, if it is a festival you're fishing, when you get a visit, when you get a peg that's got some fish, you've got to make the most of it, because you might want to be on fish one day that week, and that's when you've got to make the most of it. So he said, stay active, keep that feed if you're feeder fishing, or if you're fishing with a pole, keep balls of ground bait going in, keep feeding confidently. Don't fill it in, but stay active, because that's going to help draw fish into your peg. And the other thing it's going to do is it's also going to feed the fish if they do turn up. Because what can happen is, and he used a scenario, he says he's been in matches there where he's fished for 2 hours without a bite, and then the fish has suddenly turned up, but then he's got 2 hours worth of bait in his peg. So when they have turned up, he's caught them longer than anybody else, because there's been a pint or 2 pints of casters there for the fish to eat. You know, so he's caught longer. So he's had a longer run of fish. So that's probably the best bit of advice I can give you. If it is a festival, just go prepared, but go prepared to be on some fish. And by that, I mean, have some uplands tied up and some feeders that are big enough that are going to help you catch fish quickly if they turn up, because you might only have one window of opportunity when there might be lots of fish in front of you during that festival. And that's when you need to get your weight, you know, because the rest of the week you might be struggling. You might be on poor pegs where you're not going to get that weight back, if that makes sense. And that's where the top anglers come into their own, because when they do get that chance, you might get 2 chances in a week. You might get 3 if you're drawing really well, but you need to catch them fish while they're there. So have some bigger hooks tied up, you know, some number 10s. Don't worry about hook lengths. It depends on the venue you're fishing, but sometimes like an 017 hook length, 019, some lads fish 021, 022. Depending on the venue you're fishing, it doesn't always make a big difference. So just be prepared for that. So Hope that helps, John. Please let us know how you get on, mate. I know it's not till next spring. Rick, keep it going, Jamie. Love the videos, learning lots. Loads more videos coming through winter, Rick. And I've set myself a few challenges this winter on different venues. So hopefully you're going to enjoy those. Richard Webb, do Matrix do a medium gauge-eyed barbed hook, allowing me to hair rig baits while feeder fishing for bream and reservoirs? There is one, and I forgot the pattern of it. I'm going to find it. Yeah, please don't think I'm being rude. I'm going to have a look, find it now for you because I want to get it right. While I'm looking at the chat, I have actually got some. I use them when I hair rigging worm at places like it might be a thicker gauge one. To be fair, it might be thicker than what you need. Let me just have a quick look. Hooks and hook lengths. There we go. I'm glad this website is so easy to use now. Well done. Not that there's anybody from Matrix watching, but well done everyone at Matrix for designing an easy to navigate. Yeah, it's the MXB1. The MXB1, it might be I mean, it says it's extra strong, so it might be too strong for you. It might be too thick a gauge. Just have a look at that one. I think that's the one that I've got. Yeah, it is. Yeah. All my hooks are in the other room, but yeah. Yeah, it is. It is that one. Yeah, it is. It is a thicker gauge, so it might be too thick for you. It depends what sort of fishing you're doing. What kind of a. So it's the MXB1. All right, you can see the shape of it is obviously ideally suited for worms if you're fishing double worm or two pieces of worm if you're hair rigging it and that sort of thing. So yeah, there we go. I don't know. It might be too big for you. I don't know. Roy Davis, brilliant, Jamie. Every day is a school day. Don't tell me about it. Scott Williams, what are your go-to winter baits for silvers, either feeder or waggler? Maggot. Just about always it's maggot, and then secondly caster. And the only reason why I go for one over the other, casters you can sometimes catapult a little bit further than maggots if distance is an issue. And casters can be more selective. They can pick out a better stamp of fish than what maggots can. But, you know, depends how cold it is, type of venue, and if small fish are a problem. If small fish are a problem, casters might be better than maggots. Depends on the venue. Martin, thanks for your tips on ferry. Think I must been in a bubble just seeing the weather forecast. Yeah, well, let us know how you get on, Martin, if you do go. Ryan, Jamie, have you ever thought about going back old school, like fishing the swing tip? I never fished the swing tip, Ryan. I was the age group of when it was kind of just fading out. I never ever fished the swing tip. It was all quiver tip, so that must have been just a little bit before my time, I think. Thank you for your honest answer. It's not rubbish answer. It's a great one. I guess I struggle with Feedlinks because they are not working as I thought. Some people love Feedlinks, but even within the England feeder team, not well in the squad, but the team, half of them like links. The other half don't use links, you know, and it's a personal thing, you know. And the best thing I can say about Feedlinks is that if you're not missing bites, you know, if you're not missing bites or anything like that, then, you know, do you need a feeder link? You know, but if you are having, you see some people, it depends how you set up. Some people have got a line or a shot leader that's not very stiff. They might be using a different kind of rig. I see some rigs and they've got that many things on the rig and then a feeder link, and people are getting in tangles if you're not hitting the clip properly, and it's causing them more problems than what, you know, than what they need. You know, they don't need all those problems. You know, where obviously with a simpler rig, you're going to get less tangles, or you should. But there are occasions when I know some of the top anglers I know that are swore blind that had they not been using a feeder link, they would have been missing more bites and things like that. So it's a personal thing, but a lot of it's down to the way you set your tip. It could be the rig that you're using. So I see a decent split between anglers that use them and anglers that don't. Roger, good evening, mate. Hi, Jamie. Do you think the feeder World Championships will be in Ukraine with the current situation with Russia, or do you think it will be moved to another country? It's down as the Ukraine for next year, and that's all we know right now. There are so many ifs and buts. Anything could happen, and I mean that anything could happen. You know, we've heard that many rumors, that much gossip about where it could go to if it didn't go ahead there. But some of it is political as well. You know, some of these countries might not be popular countries for other teams to travel to. So there's so much involved as regards picking a venue for the World Championships, or even a host nation, that I wouldn't know where to start. But at the minute, we've just got to think it's going to be the Ukraine. So, and you know, with what's happening in mainland Europe now with COVID as well, who knows? You know, I mean, we're hoping to be at the Iberian Masters in March. Who knows what's going to happen? You know, there's lots of things happening, especially with COVID in mainland Europe. we don't know. We can't plan anything like that for next year. So yeah, I mean, on paper it's still Ukraine, but I honestly don't know, mate. Jamie, your honest answers are second to none, and help advice are amazing. No problem, Ryan, mate. Anytime, you know that. Steve Muskie, hi, Steve. Hi, all. Dumbass question, maybe. There aren't any dumb questions, Steve. Honestly, mate. Whatever question this is going to be, it's probably one we've all asked anyway. Your honest answer, whatever. Hi, all. Dumbass question, maybe. Can you use a floating neutral buoyancy feeder in feeder matches? The rule for feeder matches is that the feeder must sink under its own weight. That is the rule. So if the feeder is empty with no bait in, the feeder must sink under its own weight. Simple as that. It can't float and it can't sit there under its own weight. It's got to sink. So that's basically the rule. So it's not a daft question, mate, honestly. Gasper, Jamie, did you ever try an anti-tangle feeder boom attachment? No. No. I don't get in any tangles with my rigs, Gaspar. I don't use feeder links. And the rig that I've used now since Italy, since the International Feeder Challenge in Italy, which is probably 4 years ago, which we won, I switched to a rig just before then, and it's the simplest rig you could ever see, and I don't get in any tangles with it, not one. And so I stopped thinking about rigs 4 years ago as regards that. So no, but I know there are loads of anti-tangle rigs out there, but I know people that have got anti-tangle rigs and some of them are still getting in tangles. So, it's not, a lot of the time, Gasper, it's not down to, please don't take this the wrong way, anybody. A lot of the time it's nothing to do with the rig. It's just the way you're hitting your clip, or something like that, or you might want a stiffer shock leader or a stiffer mono to help you. That's all it is. It's not the rig itself. And it's back to fishing basics again, a lot of it. So no, I haven't tried that at all, Gasper. But if you've got one, mate, I'm sure we'll be interested to hear about it. Brian Jones, good shows. Thanks, Brian. Roger, thank you for the information. Dimitri, good. It's good to see you chatting amongst yourselves. Right, well, I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of your evening. Like I said, through winter, I've set myself some challenges. You've probably noticed I've done probably 3 fishing films recently. I did the World Championships in France. I did the, what did I do? Or the Tamar and Feeder Masters week. There's one long film. And then I did the World Club Feeder Championships in Bulgaria. And the feedback on those has been great. I enjoyed doing those films. And so I've got some more coming through winter for you. So there aren't quite as many of the session videos, because I think a few people are fed up with them. But depending on the venue and style of fishing, obviously. So I've got quite some films coming through winter. So hopefully you're going to enjoy those, some longer films. It's more about sharing the experience with you, the story of some of the challenges that I've set myself, whether they fail or not. But hopefully you're going to enjoy those. So I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of your evening. Don't forget, I don't want to get into trouble. Anybody is interested in any of the online courses, they're 20% off tonight. Okay, and tomorrow morning. So if you're interested in those and you want to save a few quid and brush up on your feeder fishing, they're all downloadable videos. You can just download them to your laptop or whatever and save them. Okay, so there's 20% off if you're interested in those. And thanks to everybody who's enrolled on them already. So thanks for that. Just going a quick scan of the chat. Ryan, Jamie, have you ever got frustrated with something when fishing practice sessions with international? The biggest thing, I'm going to finish on this question, all right? The biggest thing I learned about fishing, I'll not say at international level, but fishing abroad, is how different their styles and techniques are from what we're used to here in the UK. And I'll give you a prime example of this, all right? The first time I fished abroad, I fished in Belgium. I was fishing on the Ghent-Terneuzen Canal, just outside, I don't know if you pronounce it Willebroek or Villebroek. And it's a little bit narrower there from how it is further going towards the sea, which is where we fished the European Feeder Challenge. But to cut long story short, I went there with my bream head on, with my lovely bream mixers, dead red maggots, size 16 hooks, all that, like we used to here, catching bream here and all that. And I went there and I fished a quite tidy match on the first day. And I drew next to somebody who has turned into a bit of a friend now, a few years later. and he fished with braid direct. He had something like a 3-ounce tip. He had the rod up in the air. He fished a size 8 hook with seven red worms on, and his ground bait mix looked like something we'd have for breakfast. It was like a cereal, and I don't mean a cereal mix. I mean breakfast cereal. Imagine muesli mixed up with a drill. That's what it looked like, and he just completely annihilated everybody. He had like 8 or 9 bream, like nobody else. Like I think I had 2, I think, and that really opened my eyes because I'd heard about how different anglers on the continent, and I know there are some watching now, how different things are over there. And what you've got to remember is when you go into those competitions, obviously we don't do it now, but you can go there quite easily, coming from the background that we've got here in the UK, where everyone's got all the gear, you know, and everything's nice and tidy, and they're riddling the mixers and sieving the mixers, and they've got a dark mix for this, a lot, and all that. And then you rock up next to somebody in Europe, and he comes down the bank, and he's got a rod that's almost like used for sea fishing. It's casting in a different way, looks crude, but that is how they fish over there, and that is how it works over there. And I know so many people that have just been annihilated by somebody who they were almost laughing at the start of the match. And I'm sure it works the other way. I'm sure they look at us sometimes and think, what on earth is he doing? You know, but that's the difference in styles. And it took me a while to get my head around that, because I thought there's no way is he going to catch today, because if he did that on the venues I'm used to, he'd blank or he won't catch. But on those venues, that is what they do, you know, really coarse ground baits, lighter color, bigger bits of feed in the ground bait, bigger feeders. It's different, but that's how they fish. And that's when if you ever hear any international angler, if they're in an interview or anything like that, and they're saying that the fishing's so different over in Europe, that is a prime example of that. It's so different. So, but there we go. So thanks for logging on, everyone, tonight. It's Friday evening. I'm amazed we've had as many on tonight, so that's great. I will be doing one of these every month for you, but like I said, there are loads of videos coming out. I've got a film coming out next week for you. I spent 5 days at Lindholm Lakes, where I fished on different lakes. We had a couple of group days there as well, and it's about the stay as well, showing you our digs and what we did for the week. So hopefully you're going to enjoy that. It's a nice little insight into our week there. But I have got some other challenges that I've set myself, catching fish on certain venues through the winter. So hopefully you're going to enjoy those. So I'm going to let you go and enjoy your evening. I've run out of coffee now, so I'm going to go and have another coffee. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on our match tomorrow. And don't forget, if you want to see some of the live footage from the match tomorrow, regardless of the conditions, then don't forget Jamie Harrison Angling on Facebook. It will be on there, and I will be doing some live streams there for you. And no doubt some of these anglers here are going to be catching plenty of fish, so that's going to keep you entertained while I've got the easy job of just filming it. So I will be doing that on Facebook tomorrow. So to those of you that are going to be there tomorrow, please have a safe journey there. I look forward to seeing you in the morning. And if anyone wants to get involved in these matches, it's the Match Fishing channel that I'm sure you know about on this channel. If you want to join that, they are free matches. So yeah, so I'm gonna have to go now, get some stuff ready for tomorrow, get the pegs sorted out. So thanks for logging in, everyone. Really appreciate it. And the next upload is going to be on Monday at 7 p.m. on this channel. Okay, so take care, everyone. Please stay safe this weekend. I know the conditions are a bit rough, so if you're out fishing, be careful, and I hope you bag up. So thanks for logging on, everyone, and I'll see you all on Monday. Okay, take it easy, everyone.